Well, hi, we're Tech Tank. Thanks so much for coming to our lovely event. We've got some wonderful panelists who Chris will introduce later. This is live recorded. We will be putting this up on YouTube later. Everybody will be seeing me up here talking and mumbling at some point. There is also a Google Meet link happening right now, so there's people who are not here also watching this. So if you're not comfortable with the recording, by sitting here, you're actively participating and consenting to that. Our sponsor, the person who's fed all of us, given us our pizza, this lovely space, is Cohere. They will be up here in a bit to talk as well, but we wanted to give them a big round of applause for giving us all this lovely things. Thank you so much. All these lovely faces here. This is the Tech Tank admins and the organizers. There's 6 of us trying to hold this whole rabble together. Without all of us, I don't think we'd be getting all of this up. Thank you so much. We also have a whole bunch of volunteers who've been standing at the entrances and all the different points, helping us out. Thank you so much for volunteering. Woo. Please give a big round of applause for our volunteers. That's amazing. You can find more of our events on Meetup. A lot of our public events are on Meetup. This QR code will take you to our Meetup. This is our LinkedIn. We also do a lot of social posts on LinkedIn. Similarly, this QR code fancy one there with the dino will send you to our LinkedIn page, and you'll be able to see other events beyond just our Meetup on there. Slack tends to be the biggest way we all communicate. This means you join our Slack. It's not just the Meetup events. We also have other socials and other internal events specifically for our Tech Tank members. Slack's the best way to do that. Any first-timers here? Woo! Thank you so much for joining us. Check out techtanktio.com or the Slack for new events and other stuff. Who's hiring? So this is an opportunity for any employers or people who are looking to hire others to put up their hands and later get swarmed by people looking for jobs. Oh, we've got one hand up there. Put it up high, please. Let them all see you. Whoever's hiring, put your hands up. Oh, there's another hand here. You guys want to stand up? Maybe that would be a little easier. Stand up, please. Go for it. Stand up. There we go. So but they can come find you and ask about it, right? So those are the faces. I'm hoping you all saw those faces. Next. Who's looking? Put your hands up. There's your potential candidate pool, right there. So all of you who's looking, now you know who to go hound, right? Cool. Interested in speaking. So this also applies to all of you who are looking to get hired. This is usually a great way to get hired. Sign up with our little QR code to... Why am I hearing people? Sorry. Technical difficulties. Are we good? Perfect. So, if you're interested in speaking, sign up with this QR code and sign up to give one of these great talks. It doesn't have to be a panel. It could be something you're passionate about. It could be your pet project and how you built it out and then walk through with it. If you're passionate and this is your first time speaking, we are more than happy to help you, coach you through that too. Next. Interested in hosting us. So any companies out there? Okay. Any companies out there who want to host us and sponsor us? Free QR code. Sorry about the feedback. Now closing time. 8:30 p.m. We love you all. We're so glad you came. But at 8:30 p.m., I need you to all get out. The place here needs to be put back and cleaned up. If you're all here, we're going to be really rude to our hosts over here. So, up until 8:30 p.m., you're welcome. After that, please leave. You guys love what we do. You like our socials. You like our events. hey, we're looking for donations. These things sometimes cost us quite a bit of money, and we usually pull it in ourselves. We sell some tubes in the back there. They are 20 bucks. You can buy a tube, or you can donate some money, and that helps fund a lot of our events as well. And some of these events tend to be the Christmas party, or the socials, and the other stuff we do with a lot more engineers. And designers and PMs and all the other fun stuff. Next month, we have another host, Brain Station. We're going to do our next event on April 24th at Brain Station. I believe it is a tech event, and it is going in deep dive into some technical stuff. So if you're interested, please join us. Our partner orgs. So for today's event, it's not just us at Tech Tank. We partnered with some wonderful partnered organizations here, Women in Robotics and Women in Automotives. Come on over. It'll be your turn to talk, and save me from standing up here.
All right. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here, both personally and representing women in robotics. So my name is Katie. I'm one of the organizers of the Ontario chapter of Women in Robotics.
And I am Karimi, and I'm also an organizer of the Ontario chapter of Women in Robotics.
And next slide. Thank you. So the natural question is, what is Women in Robotics? Women in Robotics is fairly new. It started a few years ago in the US, and it is now spread globally. So it's the global community for women, non-binary people, and other gender minorities who work in robotics or who are interested in working in robotics. You definitely don't have to already be in the industry to participate. Women in Robotics focuses on offering 3 pillars to people working in robotics. The first is called Project Inspire, the second, Project Connect, the third is called Project Advance. We have some more details in the next slide. Project Inspire is mainly about representation. So, as many of you probably know, representation of women in tech is a bit lacking. So, for instance, if you try to search for stock photos of women working with robots, you basically just get sexy female robots or women in very tall stilettos leaning over robots. So, that's an example of something that Women in Robotics is working on addressing. So they've started a project trying to gather photos of women working with robots in a normal, non-sexy fashion, or, technically sexy. And they're trying to make sure that we have access to pictures of women working in robotics without it being weird. They also have the annual list of 30 women in robotics you need to know about, and a bunch of other initiatives focused on representation. Project Connect is focused on community. So online, globally, and locally. Our chapter is just one of many chapters across the world. There's also an online community and probably most notably a Slack channel as well. So like Tech Tank, Slack channel is a great place to go and chat with people. Finally, Project Advance is working on creating a mentorship program, also some educational resources. One of my favorite they've been doing recently is a translation program. So trying to get resources about robotics that are in English and translate them into other languages, or vice versa. Working on the sound stuff. And also, they're starting to work on some accountability metrics. Next slide. Our chapter, the Ontario chapter, hopes to support and elevate women and non-binary people in robotics. So we're working on offering some educational resources, which we're growing, some mentorship and connections, and most of all, a strong community. So please go and check out our link tree, which I'll have available at our little table over there as well, or come find me or my co-organizer and have a chat. Love to talk to you.
No, I want to present first because this is a lot of stress after robotics. So, my name is Heidi, and I'm a mechanical engineer at Johnson Electric, also the president of SAE Central Ontario. So first of all, I just want to do a little survey. Who are software engineers? Can you raise your hands? And are there any mechanical engineers? Awesome. Electrical or robotics? Oh yeah, and does anyone know what SAE is, or have you ever heard about SAE before? So the first time I heard about SAE was when I was in university, first day in the engineering school. I saw a couple engineers working on little racing cars in the building, and I was immediately very excited about this. So I ended up spending 1 year, my last year of undergrad, on the racing team. That's when I learned about SAE. So because of SAE organized these student racing events all over the world. There are more than 500 universities participate in these racing competitions, and there are different streams of competitions. For example, there's normal ICE engine competitions, or there's electrical, or these really fun Baja competitions that make off-road little four-wheelers. There's also aero design for aerospace students. So back when I was in school, I thought SAE was only organizing student events. And finally, one day after I graduated, I decided to Google SAE. And turned out SAE represents Society of Automotive Engineers, which make a lot of sense, but I never realized it for 4 years. And afterwards, I also realized how big it is. It's a global association of over 128,000 engineers and technical experts. And it's not just for automotive field, also for aerospace and commercial vehicles. So the mission is to advance technology and solutions for the mobility industry, and also to connect and educate engineers to enable safe, clean, and sustainable solutions. So the history went back to 100 years ago. I won't talk about 100 years because I failed history class in high school. It'll be very quick. Yeah, in the early 1900s, this is when the automotive industry started to establish. So all the automakers, of course, they had challenges to convince the public to ditch the horses and actually buy these noisy machines and convince them that's the next way of transportation. So that's when they were in need of this community, so they can talk about technical designs, challenges, and establish standards for their designs, and also for patent protection. And very funny that Henry Ford was actually first the vice president of SAE. So at this time it was only for automotive industry. Then 1916, the Wright brothers actually joined the association along with some tractor associations. So then it officially expanded to aerospace and commercial vehicles. And another 100 years went by. In 2009, also SAE started to establish standards for electrical vehicles and also autonomous vehicles. So nowadays, SAE has this main 6 functions. The first of all is setting standards for the industry. It's very interesting. They set standards from design, prototyping, testing to manufacturing. And standards sound very boring, but if you go through these standards, it's very interesting. If you go to SAE International website, you can see all the standards out there. For example, last week I saw a standard for rear view mirror design from 1967. And back then, CAD modeling doesn't even exist yet. So it's very interesting to see the contrast of how design standards evolve. And of course, we also do publications. So far, there's more than 100,000 papers published through us. We also provide corporate learning certification programs. We have national annual conferences, demo days. We have a podcast, and we heavily invest in student activities. So we provide scholarship, mentorship, and racing competitions. And so here's our chapter, and globally we have about 40 different local chapters, and we're SAE Central Ontario. We used to be the most active chapter around the world, but due to pandemic, we're dormant for a couple of years. And since last year, finally, we want to be active again. I will start to give up all the events. So here we really want to create an inclusive and safe community for everyone, for anyone who is interested in the industry. Yes, so last year we finally created a LinkedIn page, and so thank you for following in advance. And Yeah, and here are our board members. Some of these board members, they've been with us for more than 15 years. They're very talented, dedicated, and I always learn so much from them. And so we would like you to join us too. We are looking for any advice and any improvements that you have. Feel free to talk to me. Feel free to connect with me, and also follow our LinkedIn page. We have a couple roles open. Also, if you want to volunteer at any capacity, you're welcome. So that's it for SAE Central Ontario. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much to our wonderful partners. Yes, it was a little bit of a sales pitch for different organizations, but these are all technical stuff that we have options to. Now, we're going to give our wonderful sponsors more time to talk and tell us all about how great they are. And then we'll move right into the panel that you all came for. Thank you again for your patience.
Hi everyone. It's really great to see everyone here tonight and such a great turnout. And I'm actually I'm actually really excited to hear from our incredible panelists tonight. My name is Debbie. I'm the People Ops Partner for the engineering org at Cohere. In case you're not sure or you're not familiar with what we do at Cohere, we build world-class large language models, and we focus on bringing AI to businesses, helping them tailor our model to meet their, and customize our model to meet their unique needs. Our model is available on all 4 major platforms and also in our customers' private data centers. For us to do this well, diversity and inclusion is what fuels innovation at Cohere, and it's what helps us build great products. And we've been very fortunate to have amazing female talents joining us at Cohere over the years. And you'll meet Chris, who's hosting tonight, and Abby on our panel. And we've also had more female leaders joining us and leading our engineering teams. And we're not stopping there. So we're looking for incredible talents such as yourselves to join us and continue to help us shape the future of AI. So if you want to learn more about our roles, we're hiring for a range of them, from machine learning engineers and software engineers to product and partnership managers. Scan this QR code and check out our, sorry, what was that?
2 more slides.
Next slide. This is not it.
One more.
Join our Discord channel as well, by the way. That's how you find out more about Cohere. Another one. That is the one. Okay, so this is the QR code. Scan that or check out our Cohere's website to find more information about our roles. If you want to know more about what it's like to work at Cohere, come find Chris, Abby, or myself later, and we're more than happy to answer any questions you have. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to you, Chris, and let's get the panel started. Woo. Thanks.
How's everyone doing tonight so far? I don't know, that's like, can you make some noise? I don't know. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't really call it an event without any major technical difficulties. We had some major technical difficulties. Hope we weren't too distracting. But this is the main portion, the reason you probably came here. Or maybe you came for the free pizza, I have no idea. But just want to welcome you. Welcome to our panel discussion tonight. We're calling this Pathfinders, Celebrating Diversity and Innovation in Tech. And we're super thrilled to be able to bring our regular, has anyone attended our virtual panel discussions before?
Yes.
Thank you, yes. Well, now we've brought it for the very first time to an in-person audience. So we're very excited for that, and we have the live stream going, which initially apologies for the technical difficulties, but hopefully we've made it work. So if you don't know me, my name is Chris, my pronouns are she, her. I'm a software engineer at Cohere, and I'm one of the community organizers at TechTank. And I'm going to be moderating tonight. Very excited being able to chat with every one of these wonderful people who's going to introduce themselves shortly. And we're honored to be sponsored by Cohere for the second time already. And on a personal note, this is where I spend the majority of my time, really. And so I'm really grateful for Cohere to support and foster this type of community engagement and enabling me to integrate my own passions with my professional life. So during our panel talk tonight, we do gently ask you guys, you've already been a wonderful audience, but please continue to give us your undivided attention. And at the end of the discussion, you will have a chance to ask questions to the panelists directly through the mic. So now without further ado, let's meet every one of these people. Why don't we do a little intro? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and one fun fact about you. Why don't we go this way, starting with you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, hi everyone. My name is Yashpreet Mason, but you guys can call me Yash. I'm a machine learning engineer at TELUS in their AI accelerator team. I work with Gen AI use cases and I consult. Sorry, to keep my mic there. I consult different teams on how they can incorporate AI in their products. And I also work with Vector Institute and I do research with them in addressing biases in AI in the healthcare setting. And I graduated from Queen's 2 years ago. I have 2 degrees, one in physics and one in comp-sci. I'm trying to see. For my fun fact is last year I went to Brazil for a meditation retreat, did a complete digital detox. I loved it so much. This year I'm planning one in Vancouver. So should I just pass it to someone?
Yes.
I'll pass it to Aninda.
Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hey guys, so I'm Aninda. I'm also at TELUS, and I graduated from University of Toronto from computer engineering, and I'm in cybersecurity. I actually met Yash at TELUS as well, so we started working around the same time. So I'm in cybersecurity. I am in detection engineering team. So what I do is I try to detect emerging threats that might affect TELUS. So recently there's been a lot of threats coming from Russia, China, and North Korea. So I try to detect those so TELUS doesn't lose a lot of money. So that's kind of what I do. And I guess a fun fact about me is I watched Dune 2 recently, actually twice in a row. It was so good. And I was hooked. And I keep getting a lot of TikTok and Insta memes of Dune 2. So I guess I need to read the books as well. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I guess I'll pass it on to Rajvi.
Hi everyone, my name is Rajvi. I'm a tech lead, also at TELUS, and this is a coincidence. I'm part of the mobility commerce team, so TELUS Digital. We build web apps that support purchases of mobile devices. Apart from that, I'm also a mom of a toddler. And a little fun fact about me is I've lived in 3 countries in total. So I was born in India, lived there for a few years, moved to Africa, lived there for a few years, and then came to Canada. So yeah, that was fun. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole. I also used to work at TELUS.
Wait, I swear this was not intentional, okay? We're not sponsored by TELUS.
I worked at TELUS through this company called Mason, where I had a lot of fun at. I worked at several agencies in Toronto, so I worked at Mason, I worked at TWG, I worked at a couple of product companies, and currently I'm at a cybersecurity company called CrowdStrike. I work there on the design system core components, so I work in a bit of open source. I did React for years, but right now I'm doing Ember, and then in a few months I'm going to be doing web components. And I guess a fun fact about me is that I'm Chinese-Guyanese, so my family's from Guyana.
I'm Abby, and I do not work or have worked at TELUS. I work here at Cohere on our platform team, so my team manages the dashboard and the playground, so what you might interact with if you sign up on our website. And I've been at Cohere for 2 years. I work on the front end, and my fun fact would be I've once spent 2 months canoeing across northern Canada.
That's awesome. Thanks everybody for coming here tonight. Again, we're not sponsored by TELUS, but I do find that very funny. Let's maybe start off. This whole panel discussion is called Pathfinders. We brought you here because we all thought that you had very interesting stories into how why you are sitting here right now. So maybe, Abby, let's kind of start with you. Like, can you tell us a little bit about your unique path and how you came to be, sitting here today?
Yeah, so my background is not in engineering. I do not have an engineering degree. I actually have a finance background. I started my career working on the trading floor of a bank and did not love it. It was not the environment or the work for me. But I found through that work that I really enjoyed code. My team was very understaffed, so I did a lot of automation of my own job to create another me. And eventually realized that I enjoyed that a lot more than I enjoyed the normal functions of my job and decided to pursue that more. The pandemic worked out well for me because it kind of gave me the opportunity to take a step back and retrain. So I did online courses and switched into engineering 2 years ago and have been in 2 wonderful organizations that have really supported the fact that my background was not necessarily in engineering, with phenomenal teammates who are incredibly supportive, and it's a really interesting way to kind of see an engineering team when you didn't come through that experience. I feel like it helps me have a different perspective, especially working on a product team, understanding a little bit more of that business side of things, and I can feel like I can help out in a different way than maybe someone with a classical background can.
That's really cool. And I think, Cohere has a very interesting amount of people with unconventional paths. And I think, Rajvi, you too have a pretty unconventional path too, right? You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So I did start in computer science at U of T. I graduated and tried to take a traditional path of being a developer. If you've been to U of T or any computer science program, you know that the vision that is formed there is not necessarily the vision that you would get outside of school. So when I went outside of school into a real job, I realized, I don't know if I like this. And this was a few years ago, I'm not going to date myself, but at that time it wasn't as diverse. And so that was one of the main reasons why I felt I didn't belong. And so I decided, you know what, I don't think I can do this my entire life. And I switched gears completely and I went into teaching. I got a master's in teaching and I became a teacher. I started teaching a bunch of kids, and in that process I taught coding and robotics to kids. And I kind of fell in love with computers and robotics and technology all over again in a very safe environment and space. And through that startup, I started developing for them. I formed their development team, their programs that they used with the kids, and then ended up at TELUS, and where I find a very supportive team. So it's a weird path. I never thought that I'd be able to merge both teaching and computer science together, but I did. And at this point, even in a very technical role, I find that whatever I learned when I was in the process of becoming a teacher comes in very handy, because it's very hard to communicate tech to other people that may not understand it. So that's how I'm here.
Yeah, that's super cool, and I think I actually used to be a high school teacher too, so we can chat about it a little bit later, complain about it maybe. How about let's hear it maybe from Aninda. Tell us a little bit about your path.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a more of a traditional path, so I did engineering. So since I was a kid, I loved math, so I kind of knew I wanted to do engineering, but not which type of engineering. So I kind of decided on computer engineering because, computers are cool. But then I kind of stumbled into cybersecurity in my last year. So in my engineering degree, I kind of tried a bit of hardware, a bit of software, a bit of artificial intelligence. But I guess I didn't really like any of those fields. And then when I took my cybersecurity course in my last year, I really enjoyed it. And there was so many things you can try. There was cryptography, you can try network security. There's so many domains. So that's kind of how I got into cybersecurity. And my professor was also really cool. And then I applied for TELUS, and TELUS had a new grad program where I tried different teams in cybersecurity, and felt that I really liked it. And I feel like it's a really evolving field. There's new threats, you research and learn a lot every day. So it's I really like it, and I guess that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's super cool. And you can tell us a little bit more about cybersecurity. I think it's a pretty interesting field. Well, like,
Sorry, later.
Yeah, later. So why don't we loop back around to Nicole? I know you have a pretty interesting and longer experience as well. Tell us a little bit about your path.
Yeah, I like, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I did a bachelor's degree of applied arts in film and video from Ryerson. And so like I have this whole kind of past life where I worked on film sets, like I did stuff like video assist, production assistant, swing, grip, a tiny bit of electric, mostly swing stuff. And then, so I worked in film for a while, and then also like made short films. So yeah, like in my previous life, I've been funded by the Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Arts Council, the Toronto Arts Council, and the National Film Board of Canada. Yeah, and I got to, I got some good experiences out of it. Like I got to travel a bit. My work screened in Brazil and London, and I went to New York for some festival stuff, and I went to San Francisco. But it was actually kind of just like sort of exhausting and brutal. Like I think at a certain point I was working at BMO, juggling a full-time job and writing grants, and then using all my vacation time to like shoot films. And I was like not super fond of my bank job, so I quit. And I had this plan to just like live off of my BMO stock and chill out for a year. And then I got my first web job like 3 weeks later because my friend was working at a documentary film production company, and she was like, "Hey, do you want a job?" And that was kind of my first job. So I was like doing WordPress and Flash back in the day. So.
Wow, I would love to hear more about that. That sounds like a very interesting journey. Thank you so much for sharing. And why don't we go over to Yash? Tell us about your path.
So originally I was doing physics in university, and I think in third year I went to a hackathon with my friend. I just tagged along, and then I found out about tech, software, and everything, and I was like, oh wait, I'm in the wrong field. Like I don't want to be, no offense, not like a teacher with physics. I'm like, what else can I do aside from research or anything? So I was like, compared it to the other comp sci students, a lot of them had internships at like different companies, and I was scared, so I'm like, might as well do another degree that'll buy me some time to learn about comp sci and like figure out where am I going to get experience. So in my third year, then I decided to add that comp sci degree, and then within that I had trouble finding someone to hire me, so I actually worked at a startup through Venture for Canada. Also, if you're a student, they hire through that, like students will fund you, just like a little shout out. So I did that, and then still didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was time to graduate. So I found a rotational program where I'm like, why not just explore different careers in tech? So I explored a career in cybersecurity, which is like how me and Anita connected, and software, and then I finally ended up in machine learning. Yeah.
That's super cool. And I think it's so interesting how all of you are doing something completely different. We try to bring in people from different places. And I mean, not literally, you guys are all from TELUS, but I mean, doing different sides of software and different sides of engineering. So yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm hoping that our audience today is diverse, coming from different areas as well. So yeah, I want to go talk a little bit, ask some individual questions. Because I work pretty closely with Abby, and I'm still so shocked she has only 2 years of experience, but she is so good and very smart. But I mean, you obviously did start as a junior. So what steps did you take to kind of ensure your professional growth? And maybe tell us a little bit about what does it mean, or how do you measure that milestone of going to that next level, becoming an intermediate, and I'm assuming the next goal will be going to senior, etc. So do you have any personal goals regarding this?
Yeah, I think for me, I was really lucky to work at 2 different organizations that were very clear in their career ladder of like what was expected at each level, which I think coming from outside the space was really helpful to know kind of what the expectations were at each level and what I should be focusing on, should be learning. Particularly at Cohere, they make it very clear. So I knew kind of what I was looking for. I think it was also really helpful having more senior engineers around me, looking at the types of things they were working on and trying to take on things that felt uncomfortable or where I would have to ask arguably too many questions to get to an answer that someone probably could have done a lot faster than I could have, but I wasn't going to figure anything out if I didn't do them. So I think it's kind of that continuous putting yourself in a situation where you're unsure of whether or not you're getting to the right place, but you make it there, you pick something that isn't urgent or broken, and you take it on and see kind of how you get there, and that's continued throughout my time in engineering, and then I think looking forward, it's both taking on more complex, larger projects, but also the mentorship aspect. Like we have an intern on my team this summer who I'll be mentoring, and looking at kind of more of that within the team dynamic. I think when you start as a junior, you're just really trying to contribute, and then you start to look at kind of the team as a whole and how you're a part of that and what you can do and take on to advance the team as a whole.
Yeah, just a follow-up question to that. I'm curious, did you ever have a moment where you felt that you have made it, or do you think that moment is yet to come for you?
I don't know if it's like a I've made it moment, but I do feel like you do as a junior get from the point of the first thing you take on as a junior, especially like I had an internship pre-Cohere, someone always asks you to like change the color of a button or the text or like change the hyperlink. And you spend some time doing things like that get progressively more complex. And I think the first time I really felt like, oh, I can do this, was kind of taking on the entirety of a project, looking at something where I initially opened it and was kind of horrified by what I was taking on. And seeing that to completion was very satisfying, because when I had initially opened up that project, looked at that ticket, I really thought I was going to have to pass it off to someone else or basically pair program with them doing the vast majority. And kind of taking that on solo and succeeding in it was a very satisfying moment of feeling like I had progressed in what I could do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I think relatively, Yash and Aninda, you are also relatively new. Do you have anything to add to that question about, what you think about defining the milestones of, getting to that next level?
Sure, I can start. So I guess for me, I don't know if I can define like if I made it or not. It's like I do struggle with imposter syndrome sometimes. It's like, you don't fit in, but also it's like, I can see myself growing, and it's always like when you reach a milestone, there's always the next milestone. So it's like I like to see myself growing in my career and learning from other people. But I think over the years I've grown, when I go to conferences and other places, I can be like, oh, I understand this topic, or like when someone gives a talk, it's like, oh, I actually understand it now. But when I was in university, I wouldn't understand these topics. So it feels like, oh, I'm learning a lot, but I don't know if I've made it per se. So yeah, I'm just growing my career, and yeah, hopefully, in the future I'll feel like I've made it. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so similar to Ninda and like Abby as well, I struggle with imposter syndrome too. In terms of making it, I was actually at a conference with Ninda, and it was more targeted towards entry level. And we're sitting there, we're like, wait, we know a lot of this material, we're not getting as much value because we know it already. And then I'm like, wait, I had a moment of pausing, and I'm like, wait, I know all this. I'm no longer entry level. Like, I've actually done a lot, and that made me stop and reflect, because I feel like when you're at work, it's constantly go, go, go. You never take a time to stop and be like, wait, I've accomplished so much, I've done this and this and this. And that kind of helped me overcome imposter syndrome as well, where I'm like, I'm a lot more confident. I'm like, you know what, I got me here. If I was able to get me here, I can solve a ticket or any project that I have as well. So that's kind of how I counteract it. And in terms of like making it, I don't think I've made it, but I don't know where I will go, but wherever I will go, I'll take myself there. Like I confidently say I'll take myself.
Yes. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
The world is our oyster. Thank you so much for that. I want to go over to you, Rajvi. I think recently, congrats for you made it into you're in a managerial position now, right? So congrats for your promotion. And you did briefly mention in the intro that you are a mother. So I'm curious about how do you manage balancing, your tech career as well as your family life, and in a world where these kind of things are somewhat competing priorities. And how do you manage that, being in a leadership position and continuing to go through that ladder while having, to go home and take care of your kid?
That's a big question. The short answer is it's tough. It's not easy. There's no shortcut to it. Can I just get a show of hands of how many people are parents or wanting to be a parent? So they all know how hard it is. I don't have to emphasize that. It's been a process. I've been a mom for 3.5 years, and it took me, I would say, 3 years to at least try and feel like I've got it all under control. There are some days when at night I'm like, nope, this is a disaster, but it's okay. And it's a process. It's a process of redefining yourself, redefining what your priorities are, and it's a process of shutting down the computer at 5 p.m. because there is someone that needs you more. And you don't have the energy or the capacity to turn on your computer at 11 p.m. again to start coding again. So you have to try to really manage what your goals are in your career within the framework that you assign for work. It's a lot of time management, a lot of prioritization and giving yourself the time and space to say, you know what, this might not be the right time for me to take up a new challenge. Maybe I need to be patient, my family needs me, but I can take it up later. So it's a lot of just trying to figure out what you want at that time. There was a time when I tried to do everything and I burnt out. And so it was a learning lesson for me to just stop and take a look at my life, take a look at where am I, what are my priorities. And as soon as I learned that, I kind of became more focused in my day-to-day job as well as being more present as a parent. I started off being a parent that was not present. I was very frustrated because there's this thing I need to solve. If you're a technical person and you're trying to solve a bug, it's always in the back of your mind. You haven't done it, you need to go back, and you're not paying attention to the present. And so you need to train your mind basically to turn off and be like, okay, I'll get to it at some point. And that was the process for me.
Wow, that's amazing. I don't know how you would do that, but yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, you did bring up a really great point about burnout, which is I think something probably everyone goes through. And so skipping around a little bit, how do you, and anyone can feel free to pick up this question, how do you prioritize wellness and avoid burnout in your work?
I could go first. So I started practicing a lot of, I started going to therapy, first of all, to get help on how to do it, because I had never faced this kind of challenge before as a single person or even as a married person. I had ample amount of time to focus on what I wanted to do. And through that, I learned that, there are simple practices that I could put in place to help me avoid burnout every single day, including taking the time to work out, including doing a 15-minute meditation practice. And no, I can't do it every day because I have a child and other priorities, but I try to do it as often, and that has really helped me just make sure that I don't hit that spot again.
So I basically graduated during pandemic and also started working during pandemic, so it was very hard for me to set a boundary, what's work hours and what's my personal time. So I felt like I did experience burnout. So what helped was when we transitioned to hybrid work mode and I came into the office more, I met different people. I met Yash and a lot of other colleagues. So I think having a support system really helped. And also joining communities like Tech Tank and other, I joined a lot of other cybersecurity communities as well. So meeting like-minded people and, talking to people outside of just work really helped, because pandemic was really hard hard with burnout. So I think that really helped me a lot.
I can add a small point. I agree with what Panelists said and Rod you as well. Something I personally learned is not to make work my identity, just constantly being work. I've noticed when I introduce myself, I'm like, oh, I do this, I work here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I actually need to go back to the childhood Yash. What did I like to do? Kind of relearn who I was and incorporate my hobbies too. But honestly, it's hard. I'm pretty especially us being entry level, I feel like people expect you to get things done. Everyone's behind my back, get it done now. And especially with the economy right now, people being laid off, so that's an added stress and pressure. So it is hard, but that's where I feel like Aninda said, community, your support system, just taking the time out
with your friends, or just doing something really small and maybe incorporating it into your daily life. Like from the meditation retreat, I learned having a mindful lunch. It's really small. I have a lunch and I don't watch anything and I just mindfully eat. It's a small thing I can do every day, so it's kind of helped me, but it is hard and I feel like I don't have the answer, especially like so early in my career.
Yeah. I love the mindfully eating thing. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try it from tomorrow's lunch. But one thing that I really liked is going back to your child self. So this was not planned, but let's do a little experiment. I want you to turn to the person next to you. Say your name, but don't introduce yourself with your career. Go back to your childhood. Okay? 10 seconds, go. I think that was very much needed, and yeah, but I really love that. I will definitely practice some of these. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Nicole, I'm curious, so as a senior dev who's, I know you had that past life working in the film industry, but you have also been in the tech industry for a good 15 years. So I'm curious about, what changes, other than I think you having to have used Flash, I guess, 15 years ago, but what other changes have you observed in the industry over time? And how do you balance your roles and responsibilities, especially when going from, purely writing code to also, as a senior, thinking about strategies and systems design?
Yeah, well, can you hear? Okay, so, yeah, I think a lot of things have really changed. There's like things that come and go. I have this coworker, an old colleague of mine. He used to have this JavaScript pod group, Reinvent the Wheel. Because there's that phase with JavaScript where people were just making new frameworks all the time. But yeah, things have changed a lot. I've quit tech a couple times, and then just listening to people talk, I remembered my first job I quit because there was no version control. So my work was constantly getting copied over, and then people would be like, "Where's that thing you did?" And I'm like, "I don't know," because there's no version control. And then I think. Jobs I had later, they had version control, but they didn't have any code review. So, and I was a junior developer, and it's why are you writing your code like this? I'm like, I don't know. No one's looking at the code I write. So I think things are actually a lot more collaborative now, and even up and coming companies, they seem to have better ways of just kind of managing code quality and upskilling juniors that really didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. So.
Yeah, PR reviews are very, very important, and yeah, I don't even know what it means to not have version control. That is not something that exists in my world, but that's super cool. Rashmi, do you have any insights? You've also been in the industry for a while, right?
Yeah, can you repeat the question? Because I'm still stuck on the version control.
Yes. What changes have you observed in the industry over time?
A lot. I think, as I mentioned before, when I entered the industry, or maybe it was just my experience, I'm not too sure, I didn't see a lot of representation of someone like me. And so I didn't feel relevant, I couldn't relate. I am not a gamer, I don't play video games, and that, there were certain things that I needed to know in order to even, feel involved in I guess, that industry, which I've seen change a lot for a very good reason. And I think initially when why I decided to go into computer science was because I attended this all-girls computer science camp in Waterloo. And then I didn't see that representation that I saw in that all-girls computer science camp when I went to actually do the job. So now I see very diverse teams. I see a lot of mindsets represented. I see different ways of learning taking place. And I see that when new talent comes in, their way of learning, and everybody learns very differently, is represented, is respected. Their ideas are valued, and their own unique journeys are recognized. And I feel very proud to be part of that kind of community.
Yes, that's really awesome. Yeah, I guess sort of in reference to that, recently, Abby and I went to a hackathon recently as part of our company. It's called Command F, and basically it was wonderful. And my manager who's sitting over there, Mill, was also there. But it was a room full of female engineers, university students coming up with the coolest projects in, I think, 24 hours or something like that, and it was wonderful. And yeah, I think it was my favorite hackathon I've ever attended. Yeah. So I did say we're going to circle back to security. Is there anyone in the audience who's a security engineer? Oh. So Mark over there, who actually works at Cohere, is. But since, other than Mark, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what makes security so cool? Why are you said you basically have hated every other engineering other than security engineering. Tell us about why you love it so much, and like maybe why some of these people should look into it.
Yeah, for sure. So I did, like as I mentioned before, I kind of stumbled into cybersecurity in my last year because I took a course, but I never really heard about cybersecurity. I knew about hackers, you see it everywhere, but no one really talks about cybersecurity. Even in university, you hear about AI, you hear about software, right? So yeah, after I took the course, I was really interested, and I did a bit more research, and there's a lot of jobs for cybersecurity, but there's not enough people to fill the roles. And the problem with cybersecurity is there's like a big gap. So most of the job roles, if you go into it, you need like 5 years of experience with like 10 different certifications. So it's really hard to get into. So that's kind of the problem I had when I started in cybersecurity. But what the great thing was, I had a lot of mentors at TELUS and outside TELUS as well. So they kind of guided me. So I took a lot of courses as well as got some certifications. And what I really like about cybersecurity is always changing. There's like new threats from like different countries, from different attackers. So you get to learn a lot. So you have to keep yourself up to date every day. So there's like 10 different websites I look at. Like in the morning I wake up and I have to like research. There's like different articles on different threats coming from Russia, from North Korea, China. So it's very interesting. You learn about how hackers are trying to hack into systems. They use a lot of AI now because of ChatGPT and other LLMs. So they're using those AIs to create even like cooler ways to hack into systems that we didn't know of before. So it's always changing. So I find it so interesting that it really interested me to go into cybersecurity. So I feel like I'm always learning and always growing. So yeah, and I hope to do that for rest of my career.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, you sound really excited by these threats. Yeah, and I've never heard anyone say threats, like cool ways to hack.
Yeah, because it's like when you read the articles, it's like, oh, I never thought of you could, hack the system this way. Yeah. It's very cool, but also you see the impact. So I'm saving TELUS millions of dollars, right? Yeah. So it's like you see an impact, even though I'm not bringing the company any money, I'm saving the money, so that's my impact.
Yes, yeah. So you have to hack the hackers, you have to be one.
Yeah, exactly. You have to make sure you know how they're hacking so you can prevent it.
Wow, yeah. That sounds really cool. So yeah, if anybody is interested in cybersecurity, you can talk to Ninda after this chat. Very funny. I hope you get some great threats tomorrow. Let's talk a little bit. I think you're the only MLE on this panel, but I think, hands up if you're a machine learning engineer in this room. Okay, there's a little bit more. So tell us, also our company, Cohere, we're an LLM company, but for those of you that's here, and tell us what you do as an MLE, and I know you've also, done other things, but you also, similar to Ninda, hated everything else. Tell us, how does ML differ from the other roles you've held, and why it's so great, and why maybe some people should look into it?
Yeah, so just a little background. I've had roles in cybersecurity as a security consultant / security engineer. Mine was more of a customer-facing role than Aninda's, where we offered managed services. I felt really lonely in that role. Like it was just me use case testing, and I almost got hacked as well. And I'm like, am I gonna get fired? So I had a cybersecurity role, and then I had a front end / cloud engineer role for a different team where we were managing a platform. And then my last role was ML engineer at the current team that I'm in. Each of those roles, I honestly didn't go into it with much expectations, because remember in university, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I'm like, let's just try everything out. So after each role, I would kind of reflect back, how is the team dynamic here? Like, do I like how the team works? Do I like the type of work? And I kind of let that speak for itself. And that kind of made me realize, okay, security isn't for me. Like, yeah, there's a lot of cool threats, but I don't want to do all the certifications constantly. Not saying that you shouldn't learn, but that wasn't for me, and I'm like, I felt really lonely. So I'm like, okay, I want something where I'm technical and I want to work with a team as well. So I'm like, okay, let's go do software. That was pretty cool, you know, I got to work on some tickets, but as an entry-level person, I was just working on bugs and features. Like, I think you said, you know, like adding a hyperlink or changing a button's color or anything, so I wasn't fulfilled in my work in that sense. It's like when I explained to my friends, what do I do? Oh, I changed the buttons you see on the webpage, like that color when you click it. So didn't feel fulfilled, or I wasn't making a lot of impact. And I also kind of found that the things I enjoyed most in it was peer programming, learning from other people. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm more of a people person. And that's where I landed in ML. I'm like, I get to work with technical people, different business stakeholders. It's kind of the pros from every other team that I worked in, and the team dynamic is great, and I get to see my impact really fast. In a year, I work on a lot of different projects, so TELUS isn't just like a phone company. I can be working with an agriculture team, or a healthcare team, or just the normal network teams, but I get exposed to a lot more new things, and I'm a person that just likes to learn. I don't want to be just responsible for one team. And I also don't like on-call. So when I was in my software rotations, I had to work on-call, and I'm like, I don't know how people do it. So I just let the experiences speak for itself. I never really had a goal of, I want to become an ML engineer. It's just my journey kind of just took me there, and experiences just informed me of what I wanted to do. And it is super fast-paced. So there's constantly new things, like Ninda mentions, you can do threads, and it's constantly changing, new things you learn, and you're just never bored.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And yeah, on-calls are, you know, you basically just pray to every single god out there that nothing happens during your shift. Anyways, I am not on call right now, so whatever happens, happens. Yeah, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about self-advocacy. How do you negotiate and advocate for yourself in the workplace? And make sure that you know, you can put yourself first, or your team, and how do you do that? Maybe Abby, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. I think an important part about self-advocacy, especially when you're talking about like your own performance or anything like that, I've found in my career that it's a lot easier to do if you're keeping track of it on a regular basis. I think we've all reached like end of year performance reviews, and you sit there and you're like, what did I do this year? I did nothing. Your memory is short, and things feel a lot smaller in hindsight. So taking the time to keep track of the things you're working on, I think it helps for a lot of engineers, the fact that there's like tickets and a lot of records of those things, but looking through them even isn't quite as impactful. I don't know, I personally, I'll schedule time in my calendar every so often to just like jot down some things and keep track of, okay, if I look at the expectations of the position I'm in versus what I'm doing, what things have lined up, so that I have kind of a highlight reel. And then when you get to those times when you're having those conversations, it doesn't feel as difficult to advocate for yourself because you do have that record. I think also just understanding that although there are certain expectations of every job and you might not be fulfilling all of them, that doesn't mean you're not doing your job well. And talking about the things you've done and being proud of the things you've done doesn't mean that you're done learning, or that you're saying like, I've fulfilled every possible thing, but knowing for yourself that, okay, here's the things I am doing, here's the things I'm working on learning, is equally as important as like checking every single box. And I think a lot of managers also will respect you a lot more if you're more upfront about, here's like where I feel I need more time, or here's things I feel I'm really strong at, because we all have things we feel more comfortable in.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would love to get another opinion about this question, and maybe especially regarding when discussing salary or negotiating salary. Any?
I can touch on. I think make friends at work. Honestly, just be shameless. If you don't ask, you're not gonna get. And how I do it is I'm kind of strategic. I'll make friends in different teams, different levels. You can see like in your team directory who's what level. And I literally just blatantly ask people, hey, like, would you mind just sharing your salary range? Because some people aren't comfortable sharing their exact salary, but they'll share a range. At least in my company, that's how it works. You're in a range. And if they say no, so what? Like, just ask another person. They don't really care. Like, be respectful towards them as well. But just shamelessly ask someone. There's always someone, at least one person, that will help you. Or just Google. Like, honestly, I think you can do anything if you just keep asking around. And if you're persistent, people will help you. So yeah, just make friends, get salary ranges. Don't give the recruiter number first. Like, I'll hold that off till you get like some sort of range. And also advocate, be like, hey, I bring this experience, this is what I've done. Having counter offers is helpful too, but just ask, be shameless. I think that's how I would address it.
Yeah, amen to that, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. Let's, I would love to know your thoughts about, I think you know, you are a manager right now, and you've had experience being a tech lead as well, but I guess either from someone who's been a manager or someone who works under a manager, what do you think makes a great leader?
Sounds like an interview that I don't remember what I answered there, but for me, I think what I've tried to exemplify, even as a tech lead and now as a new manager, is to be human, basically, to be compassionate, to be vulnerable, and just to also put yourself out there as a human who has faults and is not perfect. Very often I see a lot of people trying to, I guess, just put, like, yes, we put our best foot forward in work, right? We always try to, but no one is perfect. And I've noticed I bond a lot with my team when I talk about the times that I'm not perfect, the times that, like, you know, the expectations of being perfect aren't there. That's when people kind of leave that shield away and expose themselves to who they are. So for me, one of the biggest things of being a good leader is being vulnerable and showing themselves who you truly are, rather than putting up a front of, like, I am the smartest person in the room, or like, I know everything. I don't. Like, I will never know everything about technology or coding, no matter how much experience I have. I'm never going to be the best person or the best coder or like give you the best PR reviews. I am open to whatever your views are as well, because we're both learning at the same time. And I think just being humble and human is a good thing to have.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts on that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, like, I think for me, like, the experiences I've had, like, I feel like a good leader is someone who sticks up for their team and like kind of protects them from burnout. But I do have to say, like, one thing that always strikes fear in my heart is stakeholder management. And it's kind of a boring subject, but it's like, it's actually really important, right? Like, especially if you start to work at like bigger companies, because you'll be working on a project, you know, you're heading towards your deadline. Like, according to the roadmap, it looks like you're gonna, you know, make your deadline within like a few days. And then all of a sudden someone pops out of the woodwork who has like all this power to change everything in the project, and you're like, I don't know where this person came from, right? So it's like, I feel like it's a thing that people underestimate, but it's just like, really try to find out who has a stake in your project before you really start the project. And it's harder than it seems. Like, the bigger the company is, like, you really have to like be more social and ask around. So
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. So I am being rushed on. We don't have that much time left, so I'm going to skip ahead, and we are going to ask you the very last question of the night. And I'd like everyone to answer this question, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to those people who are still trying to find their path?
think for me, having come from like a different background and trying to make the jump, there's always a focus on like, don't close a door, you shouldn't, like, don't pick something that might not give you other options, but you have a lot more transferable skills than you think, regardless of the job that you're in. And when you boil down what you do on a day-to-day basis in most jobs, you can find ways that you can do something you're interested in. So try things that you want to try. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But there's nothing worse than sitting in a job you don't like and wishing you were doing something else. I think there's a certain amount of just try it and learn to give your story in a way that is transferable. There's a lot of those skills. Doing all of my engineering interviews, coming from a finance background, trying to convince someone that like I had all these technical skills and that I had done them before, you do realize that there are a lot of transferable things. They're not going to be exactly the same, and not every interviewer or manager is going to understand the way you describe it, but the team you want to be on is going to understand the value that you bring, so try things.
I guess I would say, like, don't worry if you fail. Like, if you fail at a place, there's so many other places that you can succeed at. Like, there's so many tech companies. You know, like, it's because, like, things are gonna happen, right? Like, you're gonna flunk interviews. If you get put on a PIP and that place has unlimited PTO, immediately take 6 weeks off and quit when you come back.
All right. I think personally what I've learned is like to trust yourself and your abilities, and to have confidence in yourself whenever you're presenting yourself in front of someone. And even if, I guess, you may have doubts, learn to show that you don't in an interview. I realize I just said be vulnerable, but then now I'm saying, like, you know, show your best self in an interview. But a lot of the times we battle our own internal battles, and we judge ourselves way more than we judge other people. So maybe one thing that helps me is to look at myself as I would another person. Like, for example, like if you're sitting in front of me, I would not tell you what I'm telling myself internally. So look at yourself as your best, as someone else, and then see what your strengths are, and that will give you confidence to speak about yourself as the person that you truly are, not the person that you're internalizing to be.
Yeah, I guess similar to what all the other panelists said as well, try different things. I believe there's like a Japanese word, it's called ikigai or something. It's like figure out what you're good at, what makes money, and what you like. So if you can find the middle ground, I think that's the best way to live life. And also, it's okay to make mistakes, you know, as Hannah Montana says. Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, everybody has those days. So yeah, just try different things and figure out the, you know, the middle ground.
I would just say, just ask for things. If you're not going to ask, you're not going to get it. And you owe it to yourself to advocate and just get things for yourself. And just be resourceful. Even though traditional doors might not be open, you can try being resourceful and get opportunities and make them happen for yourself. Like, that's what got me here, so I'm sure it'll work out for you too.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all of your insight and wisdom tonight. We are going to open the floor to a Q&A. We're going to try to keep it short, maybe hopefully under 10 minutes, because you know, we are out of time. But if there are any eager folks in the audience who are, yes, we have.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. What advice would you give, what specific advice would you give men who are feminists or who are allies that work with you to support women and like people of underrepresented genders in tech?
So coming from finance into tech, I think I've really straddled the world of male-dominated fields. But I think a big thing is just like in meetings or any situation where you've kind of got that open floor for people to talk, recognizing when you're taking up the space and giving other people the chance to opine is really important, because you might get some things out of people that you didn't think yourself, and knowing when people are being interrupted, spoken over, and being the person in the room who's happy to say like, hey, they weren't finished, regardless of the person on their team. Like, there are lots of people who do this to people of all genders, regardless. So it's just being introspective, looking around you, and being the person who's willing to speak up on behalf of the people who are being spoken over.
advice given to someone who's just starting on their path? So a lot of you guys have really common behaviors, be confident, don't show any kind of like doubts or anything like that. But like, what do you do when you're in that situation where you are part of your team and maybe you make a mistake or you mess up, or maybe like, there's a really stupid bug or error that you you've introduced, or let's say you break down production or something like that. So what do you do when you kind of get those feelings of like, your confidence has been rattled, or let's say like, even going further than that, you're like a little bit of ashamed of your mistakes or anything. So how do you kind of deal with that situation?
I've broken prod quite a lot. Yeah, I think it's like the sooner you just tell people you made a mistake, the sooner people can help you roll back. And a lot of times I think like when mistakes end up in prod, like that's not really like a one-person problem, that's like a team or sort of systemic problem. So yeah, but and also like we have stuff like, kind of weekly reports we write, so it's like if your project's behind, you have to, give it a yellow or red flag, that kind of thing.
I think, if you break prod, the person reviewing is equally at fault.
Other questions?
Hello? Yeah, so this question is for Rajpreet. So how, in this day and age, we have to continuously learn new skills, right? So how do you have a full-time job, balance your family life, and at the same time upskill yourself? Because you are going to be redundant if you just stay at the level you're in.
Yeah, so I actively try to set apart some time in the week where I can find someone to take care of my daughter. I'm thankful enough to live with my in-laws so they can take care of her. But yes, it's hard, but you have to work at it. So I would reserve, I can't do as much as I would before, but like 1 or 2 hours a week to catch up on certain things that I want to learn new languages if I need to. It's definitely tougher, but you have to actively plan for it, and that's when like time management comes in handy. And like I have a calendar with everything written down, and my learning comes in there as well.
Can I say a few things, because I feel very strongly on this issue. Okay, so first of all, people are always worried about learning stuff, but like A, you should be learning on the job, and B, like even if you learn a lot, like I think in day to day, there's a lot of stuff people don't do in their code to ensure code quality, right? So they'll be busy learning stuff, but then they'll throw up a PR, and the PR has like no description or no testing instructions or no test coverage, right? So it's like, I think sometimes like the day in, day out, it's like, oh, you should have tests, or oh, you should have testing instructions on your PR. If you're a front-end developer, you should have before and after pictures, right? And I think also, like a lot of people are busy, right? Like our jobs, like we sometimes work long hours, and you should be able to learn on the job. But like learning isn't just like watching videos or reading blogs. Like sometimes learning is like going into your code base and reading all the tests to figure out how something works and like the APIs.
Question for Abby, but also happy to open it to the floor. But before your career transition, before you made the leap, how did you know that was the right decision, or was it more of a leap of faith?
I didn't really know it was going to be a good decision, is like the honest answer. I was really hopeful. I kind of burnt myself out by not quitting my banking job until after I felt like I could get another job, which was not okay, but better in the pandemic because you couldn't really go anywhere anyways. But to a certain extent, you never know when you're making that change. And for me, it was that I knew I didn't like the job that I was in, and I knew I was interested in the job I was trying to get. So that was always going to be one step forward. If that wasn't right, then I could always find something else. But either way, I didn't want to stay where I was. So the only path forward was to try something. And so it was, okay, I'm going to try this. If this sucks, I guess I'll find something else. Hopefully not. But to a certain extent, staying where you are isn't going to fix the problem.
being a woman in tech, have you ever felt any sort of positive discrimination? Be it in something more major like diversity hiring quotas or something minor like people generally being positively surprised at the people for.
Yeah, I had one really terrible year where I kept getting voluntold to do diversity stuff. So it was like, I think we organized like, some in-house coding workshops, and then like I spoke at some panels, and then at the end of the year, I didn't get a raise or promotion because I wasn't doing enough technical work, even though I was getting voluntold into doing diversity work.
I have a question for Yash. Sorry. As a machine learning engineer, well, to put you into the context, I'm a recent graduate from University of Western Ontario with a master's in machine learning and AI. And most of the projects that I've worked on throughout my studies were mostly on computer vision projects. I have sort of like two questions. One, what is one way to best, showcase my abilities as a machine learning engineer aside from side projects? And two, where can I show these projects mostly? Should I have a portfolio website for these, or does posting a Jupyter notebook on GitHub suffice for this?
Yeah, sorry, so you said like how to showcase your portfolio, and what was the first part? Sorry.
How do I outshine other candidates and show my skills as a machine learning engineer?
Well, for outshining other candidates, I think you should do, have you heard of Kaggle? Yeah, post on that. There's a lot of competitions. I know people personally that have won those competitions and then ended up getting a job as well. Do those. There's a lot of machine learning meetups as well. I know there's tech tanks, but I go to Women in AI, they welcome men as well. So go to their events, and there's a lot of people that are hiring there too. If you want to get your foot in the door, Venture for Canada, something I shouted out, and this applies to everyone as well. They fund small startups, so there's a lot of software engineering roles and ML roles. So just to get started, go there, and you would wear a lot of different hats in a startup as well. So you can showcase your skills there, Kaggle. I think just write about it. There's different Vector also hires interns as well. Just get yourself involved in open source research as well. Just get your name published, I think, so that if someone was to be able to search you up, they would know, okay, you're related to ML. And show up to events. Like personally for my company or my team, I go to events and I represent our team, and we take a note of who's visiting that event, and like we tell them, okay, send us your resume here. So just show up to places and take up space. Sorry, was that too long?
No. I think if anyone has like a dying question that they need to be answered right now, we have time for one last question. Nobody's dying? Okay, great. Then we're going to close off the night. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. Thank you, especially. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists. Abigail, Nicole, Rajvi, and Linda, Yash, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I got to learn about all the amazing work you do. Got to learn a little bit about TELUS, about great threads and everything else. Yeah, we're going to close off this discussion. We're going to continue the conversation. Feel free to mingle if there's any extra pizza. We'll be in the space until about 8:30. Oh no, yeah, we'll be in the space until about 8:30. If anyone wants to continue the conversation, we're going to hop over to Sin and Redemption and continue the conversations there. Thank you.